Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? Hi, I'm Nathan Mercero, CEO of Planning Alternatives. We're a disruptive brand in the financial planning space with a point of view that true wealth has nothing to do with money. Growing up in a small town in Canada, I experienced examples of families with money and without. It started me on this journey of understanding wealth and the idea that spending a day in a canoe with someone could be one of the best investments you could make. Join me as I sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, rule breakers, and friends to discover their perspective of true wealth. And maybe you'll start to shift yours. I'm excited today to be joined by a new friend, Kateri Karp. Kateri and I met at a CEOCI conference almost exactly 2 months ago in Miami. And as serendipity would have it, which I love how events and meetings and all these chance meetings with people appear, we sat down at the same table and had a really incredible conversation. And I invited Kateri today, who's joining us from Los Angeles, to share her story. So welcome to Day in a Canoe, Kateri. It's been fun just to continue to have this conversation and connection evolve. So excited for you to share with listeners. Maybe you could, so you work for CEOCI on the marketing focus now, but maybe you could take listeners back to your once upon a time, because your backstory is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. And I'm so happy to be here and that we could reconnect. And as I recall, at the Make Big Happen Summit where we met, you were sitting down and I was just looking for a seat. And I was like, let me just sit with this random guy I've never met before. And we ended up having like such a good conversation. So I love to be open to meeting new people, and I'm glad we could connect. In terms of, a little bit more about me, my original career ambition was I saw the Devil Wears Prada in high school. And even though that makes, the magazine industry look terrifying, I was, for some reason, was like, I must be, a magazine editor. And I was extremely driven. I went to Barnard College in New York City, and I was extremely driven just to make it to the top of New York City publishing. And I worked extremely hard. I was just very, very single-mindedly focused on making it to Glamour magazine. That was my dream. And, I was just grinding away in New York City. Starting in PR actually is how I made my way in the publishing world. And I got my dream job at Glamour magazine. I had a slight blip where a couple years in, I found out I had thyroid cancer, but that wasn't going to stop me. I was going to move forward. I was like in the hospital operating room, getting my thyroid out, like answering all these emails because I thought I was important. Meanwhile, I have no idea what those emails were about. But I was barely paying attention to my health. I had a small blip, kept going, super driven. Spent many years in publishing before I realized that, that kind of print magazine industry was dying. So I had to kind of readjust my dream, and I shifted into influencer marketing, also at a very fast-paced digital agency. Again, was spending all of my time and energy focused on work and not so much my health. And then, a few years in, I met my husband, we got married, and I said, I want to move to LA. I had this intention of I want to live in LA with, the sunshine. I just feel like this is going to be better for me. I'm grinding too hard. I need to take a step back. And this isn't like all of life is not New York City and grinding. So I was like, let me just go to the doctor, one more time before I make this cross country trip. And I go. This is February 2020, and it turns out that I had cancer in both of my lungs. The thyroid cancer had reoccurred. It was in both my lungs. My doctor drew this, I don't even know why she presented the information to me like this, but she took out a piece of paper. She drew a picture of a torso and then made dots where all the cancer was appearing. And it was literally all over my chest, both lungs. It turns out I did also have pneumonia at this time, so that caused a little bit of extra inflammation. And she's like, here's this picture with all these cancer dots in your lungs. If you want to move to LA, I approve it because somehow this is not life threatening. but you need to get care right away. So my husband and I moved to New York City in March 2020, March 8th, 2020. And this is a pre-planned move. And, I'm lucky to get care right away at Cedars-Sinai. Meanwhile, the world is in the process of, like, shutting down. They decide to just watch what's going on, for 3 months to see how fast it's growing. Sure enough, it's growing too fast. So I have 2 lung surgeries, 1 on each lung, in summer 2020. And as I'm sure you recall, they really weren't having surgeries during this time. So that shows, like, that I was still an emergency. I was 33, very young for, I feel very young for this type of cancer. I think usually patients are in their 60s. So this is already like kind of unusual. Um, I have the 2 surgeries, and then it turns out my numbers are still going up. I just went through 2 surgeries the whole summer. Blood numbers are going up. I asked my doctors what's going on. They say, we don't know, but it's probably fine. And lesson is it's not probably fine. If if something is not making sense about your body, you need to interrogate that, and you need to make those doctors prove to you why that's, like, not an issue. Basically, let's do all the tests possible to prove to me that's not an issue. I didn't do that. And then a couple months later, I started to develop these symptoms. The right side of my face and my right arm were kind of getting this weird tingly feeling. And again, I brought it up to my doctors, and they were like, it's probably something to do with your lung surgeries. It's probably nothing. I'm like, this seems weird. I've never had this tingling sensation in my arm or on the right side of my face. And so I went to my regular, GP, and she said, that seems weird. I saw a neurologist, and it was still happening. And at this point, I'm like, I have cancer in my brain. There's just no way that it's anything else. And sure enough, in early January 2021, I went to go to a brain MRI. I went home. They called me back within 2 hours, and I said, "You have 2 brain tumors. Um, One is, like, I think it was against my motor cortex. It's dangerously close. We need to get this out immediately, or you could lose, like, motor function in your right arm." So, they called me back to the hospital right away, um, and they need to, like, prep me for emergency brain surgery, and I'm, like, really calm through this whole thing because I had already kind of decided that it was in my brain, and so, like, the 2 tumor thing did throw me for a loop, but I was like, "Alright, this is fine." And the only time that I got really, really down was, I went to the hospital. I had an amazing neurosurgeon. I felt really confident in everybody's care, but they still hadn't scanned my entire body, which I didn't realize. And they scanned my entire body, and 2 days later, and they called me with the results, and the cancer was in both of my leg muscles.
Wow. This is like a bad infomercial.
And at that point, I became suicidal. Like, I was just like, it's truly I'm riddled with this. Like, it's truly gone head to toe. It's in my entire body, and I collapsed. I was like, I need a social worker to call me right away. Like, I told my oncologist, he was like, "No, no, it's fine." I'm like, "I don't know that I'm gonna be here tomorrow if you don't get me to talk to someone right away." And it's surprising to me how a doctor could just call somebody on the phone and deliver such bad news and then just be like, "Talk to you later." Like, no, I need a social worker on the call. Like, you can't just be calling me with all this bad news. You can't take it. But, and if you Google any of this, like thyroid cancer, and a lot of people think, oh, you must have different types of cancer. No, this is the original thyroid cancer that spread to my lungs, spread to my thigh muscles, spread to my brain. If you Google that, like thyroid cancer in any of those places, like there's 0 results. Like, this does not happen. This is like 0% rare. I'm a freak at this point. I'm like, why is this happening to me? This is a very like why me moment. I'm so young. I see all my friends on social media, they're having like regular lives. Like, why is this happening? But upon getting that news, I basically was sad for like 2 hours maybe, and then I was just like, "Okay, I need to just move forward. There's nothing I could do about this. Like, I need to just fight this as best I can." A couple people told me that they had, like, met somebody who had cancer in their brain and they survived, and I kind of learned that, like, hope is, like, the number one thing that can help you. Like, just believing that it can get better is, like, almost as good as knowing that it's better. So I kind of had hope that it could potentially get better. I picked myself up. I made a game plan for, like, second opinions and things like that. And yeah, I had brain surgery, and I woke up with an immense sense of gratitude. Like, just I was so grateful for life. And I remember calling on my phone my boss at the time. I hadn't told her. I was so embarrassed about all of this. Like, I've never spoken about this at all with anyone, like publicly or anything. Like, very few, not that many people know about it. I kind of just did this all myself, because I'm so embarrassed that, like, I'm weak, that cancer has chosen to infiltrate me. And I was working when I had the lung surgeries, and I didn't tell anybody that I was going through this. I just said, like, "Oh, I have to take some time off." And I didn't tell anybody why. I was just like, I just thought, because I was so work focused, I just thought like people would look down on me. And but then when I went to my brain, I was like, this is really out of my control. Like, this is next level at this point. So I called my boss from my, like, recovery bed, and she thought I was on drugs because I was so happy. She's like, "What kind of drugs are you being pumped with?" And I'm sure I was being pumped with, like, pain drugs or whatever, but, like, I was just so happy to be alive. And truthfully, like, I feel like I've kind of been on that drug since that surgery, like, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's completely changed my outlook on life, and now,
Sure.
luckily, I've had the good fortune of having such good insurance, such good medical care, that, I'm in remission now.
Mm.
Um,
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think about the times when life goes off script, like
Mhm.
we've got all these plans ahead and, the spreadsheets and the vision boards and all these different things, but then life happens and we've got to navigate it. And sometimes that pivot moment of realizing and embracing the reality of the moment, but yet finding hope, that glimmer of hope that exists is we're called upon to do that quickly. What was your energy source around that? Like, do you believe that was just an internal decision and choice and you made it? Did you have a moment of inspiration? Did you have like, hey, this is the only option I got, so I am going to be hopeful? Like, how did you navigate that space?
Even when I was, like, really down, and how
Yeah,
did
when you're
I
really
get back
down.
up?
Yeah, when you're really down.
Well, I think there's, like, a couple things. One is that I've had setbacks in my entire life. I do think I'm in a great place now, but I've had bad things happen, my entire life, and obviously to a much smaller scale, in comparison to this. But I think that practice, um, really helped me, because I kind of, whenever I encounter a challenge, I think back to, well, that bad thing happened. I didn't get that job. I didn't, get that opportunity I was really hoping for. I got some bad news. Like, a lot of things are crushing in life, especially when you're younger. There could be very crushing things. And I was always able to overcome them. And I was just speaking to one of my friends in my high school reunion, and I was telling her about all this stuff. And she was like, "Well, you were always really strong." And I think I just, from a young age, kind of had this practice of, like, I would literally fall, or fall metaphorically, and then I would get back up. So I feel like I kind of had that muscle memory. And then, I mean, I was really down when I got this news, and, I texted a couple people, like some of my friends, and I was like, "I got this bad news. Like, I'm not feeling like this life is worthwhile." And they're like, "Your life is very worthwhile." Just kind of people saying that. And my mom was with me. She had flown in to be with me, like, when I was dealing with all of this stuff. And I mean, I think she was really upset too. But I honestly don't know. I think I just always allow myself, like a couple of hours or a day or something to grieve. I think that's important. Like I'll cry. I'll let it out. I'm not going to deny myself those feelings, but I don't really like to languish in this bad news or this in between. Like I like to be sad or I like to be taking action. I don't really like to be a complainer. I'm not going to sit there and complain about something for a long time. I'm gonna what can I do? Like my option was literally like end this life or find a way out of it. Like in my head, like those were the two options. So I just kind of had to find out. And I remember I spoke to the social worker after I insisted. And when my oncologist gave me the bad news, she could tell I was in a really bad place. She's like, okay, let's speak in like another 2 to 3 hours. And by the time I got on the phone with her 2 to 3 hours later, I was a completely different person. She's like, are you the same person I was speaking to earlier? And I was like, I guess so. So I don't know. I think it's just like an inner strength that I've probably cultivated over a long period of time, but I'm lucky that I had that, I guess.
Well, you have an incredible story. I think you're incredibly inspiring. So, uh, thank you for sharing this publicly because I think that it's going to be really a message of hope and um, encouragement to so many people who are listening. Another topic that you and I connected on, well, well distanced from brain surgeries, was the topic of money, and
Yes.
specifically money for couples. What is your, I guess, viewpoint of money, and within your relationship, you and I talked a lot about that. Like, what are some takeaways or things that are really intriguing to you about the money topic at this stage of life?
Yeah, like how we were chatting about what you do and, your podcast and the idea of true wealth. And I found this other expert, Ramit Sethi, and he had a Netflix show like How to Get Rich or something like that. And it's not like the sense of rich in terms of a lot of money, but really like the idea of true what is your rich life? What is
Mhm.
living a full life mean to you? Which is, I think pretty aligned with your true wealth idea. And so that really aligns with me, and I think I'm just really fascinated with money because I didn't really, like, grow up with a lot of it. I was probably some level of middle class growing up, but certainly didn't have a lot. I didn't have all the things I wanted. I went to a great college, but that was like I don't know, I don't even know how these things happen, but I certainly was not the wealthiest, and I really had to work my way up into everything that I have, and, I was always just, like, really interested, like, how do other people pay for all this stuff? Where's where is that coming from? And, um, I noticed people don't talk about money. Even when I met my husband, he was taught not to talk about money, so I didn't really know how much he made. We just didn't talk about it, and we didn't talk about it until we, like, moved in together, or we were going to move in together because in New York City, you need the rent is ridiculous, so you need to kind of align on it. And, I I'm like, "Why don't people talk about it?" Like, how are people dealing what are people saving for retirement? Are people in debt? Is everyone in debt? Like, what's going on? And I feel like there's just such a lack of transparency about it, and, I just kind of believe in talking about it. I just you don't have to give all the ugly, grisly numbers, but, like, how are you making your life work? I wanna know. And so I'm interested in finding out stories about money, like this money for couples podcast that I listen to, people are, like, really explicit with it. They kind of outline their budget and how they're spending their money, and I wanna know because am I doing it right? Like, could I be doing it better? I want those tips. I didn't get a lot of money education growing up. Um, I don't think they really teach it in school. Where are we supposed to learn it? And I think especially in a relationship, money can be such a big deal. And if you're not aligned on money, it can cause a lot of conflict. Luckily, my husband and I are pretty aligned on money. Um, but I just think everybody should be talking about it. And then I don't understand why they're not. And I don't understand why everybody's not listening to a million podcasts about it. And um, working to make their money work as hard as possible for them. And I obviously money is important and it's not everything. Health is probably the most important thing, but I have to acknowledge that my level of privilege of like how much money I was making and the great job that I had gave me the insurance that enabled me to have the great care and to get my health back. So I think they go hand in hand. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I guess that's my interest level with it.
Yeah, that's we're so aligned in that, and that's what our mission is to put a spotlight on money conversations and explore what true wealth means. We have the true wealth assessment on our website. There's 6 categories. Physicality is one of those key categories of the true wealth life. So it is about health. It is about relationships. It is about being creative and exploring possibilities and being productive in ways that are meaningful to you. There's all the areas that make up a true wealth life, and I love that our paths have crossed, and really appreciate you sharing your story, your motivation around just being curious. I think there's like something so powerful about being curious, and you exhibit that, and your energy is infectious. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you for joining the canoe today, and
Thank
look
you for having
forward to
me.
that.
It's been a pleasure riding with you.
All right, to be continued. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. To discover what wealth means to you, please take our assessment at planningalt.com.